Hello and welcome to the Breaking Free podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Francis, and today I'm very grateful and very humbly joined by Emery Robichaud. I got it. I did it. Yes.
First chance. Perfect.
Emery's an awesome dude. Met him through the coaches program. His wife, Andrea, he helps Jason run our program. She said I should talk to Emery. So we've connected today and we've had an interesting chat off air as well. So hopefully some of that can filter through to this one. And Emery's a crypto enthusiast, sort of a topic I haven't really dabbled in too much on here. So my listeners and my viewers, I know you guys will get a lot out of this. I will too. So Emery, I'll pass it over to you. Welcome to my show. Looking forward to hearing about your story and how you got into all this stuff and sort of your journey, I guess, into crypto, awakening, and whatever else we go on. So it'll be good. So a few tangents here. I'm looking forward to it. Emery, welcome, and I'll hand it over to you. Let's do it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. Yeah, I mean, we can go to the beginning, I guess. So for me, I got into cryptocurrency kind of the way a lot of people do, and that's out of fear. So 2019, life is great. The future is bright. Everything's going smooth. My wife and I are running our own business. We have a big gym, and things are great. We decided to sell it. It sold on January the 1st, 2020, and we're going to sell our house and move to Costa Rica and start a whole new life, that kind of thing. So we went to Costa Rica for 3 months, investigating properties and just checking out life and relaxing for a while because we put so many hours in, running our business. All the COVID stuff happened. We went back to Canada, and the very first thing I thought was, I need to get my money out of the bank ASAP. Mm-hmm. So I've been one of those people that, kind of on the conspiracy end, but I've been doing my research about, to call it the collapse is a bit extreme, but, kind of the changing of the guard. I've been, kind of dabbling in that since 2003. So we were in Costa Rica. We find a house we really like. My wife wants to buy it. We're talking numbers. I pull her aside and I say to her, and this is March the 10th, I say, just be aware that in a year or two, maybe 3, there might be some crazy outlandish law where something's going to happen in the world and they're going to make us leave here and go back to Canada. So, maybe they'll call it like the Nazareth clause or something. Think about like when back in Jesus' day when they made everybody go back to their home countries to do consensus. Anyways, but so just be aware, we might lose this house. The very next day, the town we were in was almost vacant and all the Europeans were gone. So we had to ask, because we're on vacation for 3 months, we're not paying attention to the news, and they're like, oh, it was the last flights out of here for direct to Europe. I'm like, wow, what's going on? They're like, oh, there's this outbreak of a disease, everything's shutting down. So I was like, oh, what the heck? So we left. I wasn't expecting it that day. I was expecting it 3 years from now. But, long story short, when I got home, I thought, okay, we need to get our money out of the bank right now. So all I knew was, gold and silver. And I didn't even know gold and silver that well. I just knew that it was classified as a safe haven asset. So right away, I went online, ordered some gold and silver. And the very next thing I did was research cryptocurrency because I knew nothing about it. And it was actually Jason Christoph who messaged me like 2 days after he got back saying, have you ever heard about cryptocurrency? And like, you ever think about getting into that? And I was like, I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it though. So it was like full-time job. I need to figure out what the heck is going on with cryptocurrency. So for me, it was like this fear of government seizures and government overreach and all that kind of stuff. Those voices in your head that are saying like something's not right. It's probably going to get worse. You have some money in the bank. Let's not lose it now. And that's all I did. I literally sat down and watched every video I could find on YouTube. I read every article I could find on the internet for literally 8 hours a day for 6 weeks. It was a full-time job, deep dive before I even invested a nickel. Because I wanted to get a full grasp of what I was getting into. Because for me, it was just hocus pocus, digital money made no sense to me. Like, made no sense to me. I thought I'm going to put up, at the time, Bitcoin was $9,000. Like, I'm going to put up $9,000 for a dollar coin. Like, how does this even make sense? Like, it just did not make sense to me. So yeah, after the 6 weeks, I sat my wife down and I said, this is what cryptocurrency, as far as I can understand. Did my 50-minute sales pitch. And I said, how do you feel if I start investing? And she's like, you sound like you know what you're talking about. I trust you. Let's do it. So the rest is history. We're 4 years deep and not looking back. So it's been a journey.
Mm.
There's no, the thing about like cryptocurrency, blockchain, everything as a whole, it's an ever evolving technology, right? So the basics that you learn at the very beginning, if you're continually learning and continually trying to learn more about the technology, you realize you know nothing. And it's just like, okay, now I really got to tackle this next scenario. I got to tackle this one, tackle this one. So you're just constantly being bombarded, which makes you readjust how you're even going to invest in the asset class.
Mm.
Um,
Interesting.
and then, yeah, so that, I mean, it's one of those things where, we talked off air about qualifying, right? If you're going to buy a car, well, I'm not just going to walk on the lot and just say, I want that car, I'm leaving. If I don't know what the car is, I've never heard of the manufacturer, I'm not talking to a salesperson, it's not going to happen. I'm going to want to know some specs, details. I'm going to want to take it for a test drive. Can I even qualify to own the car? Like, can I afford this car? You're going to go through a whole spectrum of things before you buy a car. And with investing, especially in cryptocurrency, I don't think people take enough time to just kind of sit back and think, okay, what is this asset class? How do I get in? How do I get out? Like, people are easy to get in, and then they figure out, oh, it's a lot more difficult to kind of get out than I thought. So it's just taking, the time to really assess the situation, assess your own personal situation, your finances. Where do you see those coming and going? Do you have a steady job, or is it you work for yourself? The employment you have, is that steady? Is that guaranteed? There's a lot of factors people aren't really thinking about. They're just thinking in the fear mindset, okay, I need to get my money out of the system and into, out of that control grid and into this other grid that I can control. I feel secure now. But as the years go on, you start to realize, okay, maybe there's not as much control in there as I thought. And that's kind of where, I get a lot of emails daily, and people voice concern to me, and that's what forced me to dig a little deeper. And I realized, okay, yeah, there's a lot more to this than people really, than on the surface what people realize. And jumping in quickly is a little bit silly, in my opinion. It's people need to slow down and really like assess, like what we were talking about earlier. Where do you see the future in finance? Where do you see the future of your finance? Where do you see the future of your government system, your banking system? Do you believe that they're going to have digital IDs? And do you believe they're going to have 15-minute cities? And you know what I mean? Like, if you're in this mindset, talking about this 2 years ago, people thought it was crazy. Now they're like, oh, wow, this is okay. It's all kind of falling into place. That'll change how you look at the asset class and how you invest in the asset class, right? So, but yeah, it's been a great journey for me, and I've found it super fulfilling because I love learning, and this is an ever evolving asset class that I'm just able to every day plug away and just learn more and more and more. So, which helps me with my investments, and then helps me to, give my opinions with other people on how they could invest or think about investing, or the different avenues and options. So,
yeah, nice
that's
one.
my
So if
super
someone,
long-winded.
yeah, that's all right. If someone was sort of like me and sort of like wants to dabble,
Yep.
what would be your sort of, would you recommend someone like me that doesn't really know too much about it, sit and do some research for 6 weeks, eight hours a day, and then make it happen? Or like, what would you sort of
Well,
recommend someone that's sort of in my boat that's like, oh, I've got some extra cash here, like what sort of should I do with it? With the crypto market, like what would you recommend someone just starting out do, actually, is the question.
oh yeah, the very first thing I would do is just research a little bit, just get the basic understanding, and not just like, people will type in what is Bitcoin. Beyond that, like, what is the asset class? Because Bitcoin is a very minute portion of what cryptocurrency really is. And most of the information is kind of stem that way and forces you in that direction. So you really have to play with the algorithm a little bit so you can get more information. But yeah, it would be straight up. Originally, you'd want to just educate yourself on what the asset class is. But before you even invested, I would strongly recommend people knew how to put money in and how to get money back out.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, because once it's in, you're like, okay, great, I bought this asset. It's Bitcoin, or it's Monero, or it's some other small cap, meme coin that you're hearing about on Twitter. Okay, that's all fine and dandy. You can buy it very easy. They're all available on hundreds of exchanges. But when you try to sell it, that's when it becomes an issue, because you realize very quickly, like, oh, there's not enough buyers for this asset I've purchased on the exchange that I purchased it on. The liquidity is too low. I can't sell it. So now I got to try and move it around. So do you know how to move your cryptocurrencies around from wallet to wallet? Do you know how to go in from exchange to exchange? Right. There's all these little things, right? It's like, it's very easy to buy. And then when you're trying to sell it in a panic because you realize, okay, I've made all this money, I need to sell it, but you haven't done any research on how to even move it, then yeah, people start to, that's where I get these emails 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm trying to do something I don't know what to do. I don't see it till, 8 in the morning. I'm like, okay, are you still in that panic? Like, what, how can I help you? But yeah, it's just educating yourself. It's like anything, right? You're not gonna pick up a guitar if you've never picked it up and just be like, I'm gonna go on the stage right now and just start rocking out. You're gonna take some lessons and learn how to play the guitar, right?
Yeah.
So it's the self-education is definitely the number one factor people need to seriously consider. And then there are people like myself and other people that condense a lot of information into small bite-sized portions, so you don't have to scour the internet for 8 weeks. You can get it in bite-sized pieces, and just finding those people. And then if your ideology kind of lines up, that's who you want to focus with.
Yeah.
Because you can get the information, right? You can get the basic information, but if the information being given to you or fed to you is directed in a very specific way, it's going to have its biases on either side. So you want to make sure that your ideologies kind of line up with that person. So, if they think cryptocurrencies God sent and it's the savior from the Matrix and all these other things, and you believe that too, like, okay, then try to understand how they got there and why they feel that way. But if you think it's evil and malevolent and it's going to take over the world and be the CBDC ruler and all these kind of stuff, well, then find people who think that way and kind of try to learn why they believe what they believe. I like to get kind of a spectrum because over the years I've gathered a lot of information, and then I've been able to kind of see the trends within everyone's belief system, and there's always a commonality amongst them, right? So it's usually freedom.
Yeah.
So, and I can't fault that. Who wants to be in a system that's constantly trying to break you down? You're in Australia, like it's the government there is just getting out of control with censorships and digital ID and all this stuff. They're really steamrolling it through. And in Canada, it's the taxation. Like they're not pushing too much on the digital ID and all that. They kind of backed off on that, but they're just taxing the heck out of people right now. So it's like they're trying to beat everyone down on different planes to see what really sticks. What's working really well? Let's try this in Australia. Let's try this in UK. Let's try this in Canada. Let's try this over here. And then they sit back and just do take the notes. So being in crypto, it does allow you a certain amount of freedom, but I think people have kind of like a mild disillusion on how much freedom it's actually going to allow them in the end. But ultimately, you got to do your research. I say that at the end. I have a newsletter every week. At the end of even though my newsletter is extremely well researched, all fact based, I still say do your own research at the end of every single one, because it's like, this is all the information I was able to see.
Yeah.
Maybe the server you're using in Cyprus is going to have access to more because I'm being censored and I don't even realize. I just don't have access to certain information. So it's. And I noticed that coming from Canada to Nicaragua, the information I'm available to see is very different. So I can only imagine how much I'm unable to see that I don't even know. And you don't know what you don't know, right? So it's always do your own research. So number one,
good
do your own
advice.
research.
It's interesting because being in Australia too, yeah, you make a good point there. Because I'm not, yeah, we're getting censored here too. It'd be different if I was to, go to where you are, and then the information I get would be totally different. Yeah, it's an interesting point you bring up. It's a really good piece of advice.
That's the one thing I noticed is just because going back and forth from Canada to Nicaragua, it's just all of a sudden I just don't have access to like different websites. Yeah, I'm researching Nicaragua. I go to Canada for a month for vacation, visiting family, and it's like, what the heck? I can't even get this website. Like, why is it not working? And I got to put up different VPNs and stuff to try and get access to them. It's just, yeah. Again, but if you're always spending your time in Australia, you're only going to know what the Australian government wants you to have access to. And if you're always only in Canada and you're never leaving, you're only going to know what the Canadian government wants you to know. It's just so, like, we have this infinite access to information over the internet, but they're compartmentalizing it all now, right? It's like, yeah, it's pretty crazy. And that's the same thing when you're looking for for crypto,
It's interesting. And I want to bring up another point too. A lot of people in the freedom community will follow like financial people that are in the freedom community as well. And they'll talk about crypto and they'll say XRP, XLM, and there's one more that they really promote, more of like a white hat thing. They really promote the XRP, XLM, and there's one more. If you can remember what it is, that'd be fantastic. But there's three of them.
Is it XDC, the three X's?
Probably, I think it might be that one, yeah. And they're really driving people to get those three. And I was in that mindset last year of, well, they're not really going to save. They're not saving the world. And I'm like, well, why are they trying to drive people to these three cryptos? Do you have people asking you those sort of questions too? That's just a question just came to me.
Of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, it's so again, when you think about cryptocurrency, all it is technology.
Yeah.
It's just code, right? So it's not good or evil. It's whoever is controlling the technology. What's their motives, right? So when you think about assets like XRP, XLM, XDC, those are money transmitting, value transmitting assets. So what I mean is those are specifically designed to tokenize an asset and transfer it over the blockchain. So you could take gold and then you could transfer it using XRP or XLM or XDC and make it to be Japanese yen on the other end. And those tokens move the value.
Yep.
Quickly, efficiently, cheap, all these kinds of things. So there's one end of the spectrum that thinks, okay, these are the tokens that are going to run the financial world. And I am in that boat. But it's not for good reasons. Okay, like I could get into the whole history, the conspiracies behind XRP, and the family that created that. It goes way back. They've been around since like the 1100s running banks.
This doesn't surprise me. If you
it's
you name the family, I bet you I know who. We all know who they are anyway.
It's the Fuggers, but no, it's the Fuggers, which are part of the Rothschild.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's like, ultimately in the end, it's like, it's cryptocurrency really is designed to solidify the control grid.
Yeah.
Okay. Like the concepts behind them are very, very good. If we lived in a world that was run on blockchain, banks and governments couldn't steal your money anymore because you could just see. No, you just transferred $6 billion to that wallet over there. And I know that's not what you said it was for. It would be very open. You could see it. But they're not going to do it like that. They're going to have one like that for us. So they can see that we're buying too much meat, we bought cigarettes, or you spending it on cocaine, whatever, whatever you're doing, they can see it. They'll have their own like side rails that are just completely like closed gardens is what they call them, that are built on the same chain, and we just don't have access to them. So it's definitely, so it's like using, this is where I like to say, like the technology's there. They're steamrolling the forward. They're going to do what they want to do in the end. People have so much sway. It takes all of us banding together to stop something or to create something, right? So, and the majority of people are asleep and just don't care. It's like the majority just are, as long as it doesn't affect me, I don't care.
100%.
And then like, WF's like, if you have nothing to hide, then you shouldn't care. It's like, that's not the point. That's not that I have something to hide. It's just, I don't need you knowing that I bought 4 loaves of bread today. Like doesn't make any sense. Why do you need to know that? So you have a group of people like, well, if it's not affecting me directly in a negative way, I don't care. And then you have another group. It's like, I'm worried it's going to affect me, but I don't know what to do.
Yep.
And you have a very small minority of people who are like, I know this is going to affect me. I know this is going to be awful, and I want to do something about it, but I don't know, like, how are we going to do this, properly? So I'm kind of on the board where it's like, I know they're coming through with everything. I see the malaise attitude with the majority of people. I see how they're intentionally crushing everyone financially to usher in a new system, right? You need people desperate. And then you're like, look, we messed up. The banks have all collapsed. All your money's gone. There's no retirement funds, but we have this new system ready to go. Here it is, right? And that's kind of, I look at, okay, what are the cryptocurrencies that these, guys are probably going to use to set up this new infrastructure when it's ready to go? And then I place my bets on those. Now, I'm of a mindset that I probably will not have access to my bank account in the future world. 3 years from now, 5 years from now, I'm probably one of those people that's locked out. social credit score is too low,
Same
whatever
here.
it happens to be. You're exactly right. So it's like, I know this, or at least I have a fear of that. So I'm going to use cryptocurrency now to make as much cash as I can while I still have access, so that I can buy more tangible goods, property, gold and silver, just those kinds of things that I can have under my own control.
Yeah.
And I will leave a small portion of my cryptocurrency on my wallets for the odd chance that I actually didn't get locked out of my bank accounts. I still have access and all these kinds of things. And then the system switches and they're worth so much more money. It's all great. But it's not for, I'm not like, oh, I bought my Lambo. I'm not one of those guys. It's like, no, I want to be able to take care of the people around me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people around me are not paying attention enough. And no matter how much I try to warn them, they either feel like they don't have the ability to invest or the time to look into it, or whatever it is, whatever reason, right? And some people, it's true, they just don't have the means. Like, they're living on credit cards trying to get the rent, But for a vast majority of people, it's just choices, right? They just choose to put their money somewhere else. It's like, that's not a big deal. That's cool. Okay. You have a cell phone. It's you have a new iPhone every time it comes out. That's a lot of investable money. You could just, like, I have an iPhone 6.
Yeah.
I
Mine's
refuse
like
to
an 8.
get anything. I
Same.
refuse to get anything new. As soon as it dies, I try to find another 6, because it's like, it's not as up to date with all the
Yep.
stuff they put in their phones, but it's also, I just don't want to have an expensive phone.
Same.
It was interesting. I was watching a little clip and it had Tony Robinson on it, and he was being interviewed, and he asked the gentleman, he's like, he's like, do you have an iPhone? He's like, yeah. He's like, do you have the new iPhone? I don't even know what it is. Maybe it's a 15. Are they higher now? I don't know.
I don't know.
iPhone. Yeah, so I think it's the 15. So he's like, oh, do you have an iPhone 15? He's like, yeah, I do. He's like, did you know if you bought Apple stock every time an iPhone came out instead of buying the phone, it's like, you would have spent $26,700 on phones. The guy was like, whoa, I didn't think it'd be that much money. It's like, okay, do you know how much money you'd have right now if you had put the same amount of money in Apple stock instead of buying the phone every time the phone came out? Do you know how much it'd be worth? He's like, I have no clue. It's like $200,000. It's like $205 million.
Wow.
Right? So it's like, people would rather have an iPhone than buy the stock, because they don't understand the concept of long-term gains and long-term growth patterns. And just, cryptocurrency is like the entry level right now for what Apple was in the 80s and what Microsoft was in the 90s. All these huge stocks that are like super expensive now. It's like, you have an opportunity to get in at a really, really low entry level if you have enough vision to hold it for long enough, but also understand your risk tolerance, because it is super volatile, right? It's not a stock. It's not going up 10% a year and just continuing, and maybe you get some surges, 10% pullback. It's like, it's going to go up 100% in a day, some of them, and then it plummets 80% the next day. You're like, what is going on? I don't understand. It's like, yeah, it's volatile. You got to understand the risks. But yeah, it's a matter of just understanding kind of where it's headed, where you're getting on, and where you want to get off. Like, there's so many, cryptocurrency is so vast, and there's so many avenues within it, and so many money-making opportunities within the layers of cryptocurrency, that even if you didn't want to day trade, which I don't day trade, but even if you didn't want to day trade, you can buy cryptocurrency, lend it out at a percentage, guaranteed. You're going to get that percentage back. You can stake it. There's tons of opportunities. So you're like, oh, I'll put $100 on it. You just sit there and wait. That's one way to do it. And wait for it to be $300 or $5,000, whatever your target is. You're just watching that asset grow. Or you can be lending it out and getting more back every single time, right? And compound those dollars into the hundreds. Now 110, now it's 130, now it's 190. But if you just left it as $100 on the side, now it's like 102, 104. Like, it's like people need to change their mindset of what they expect out of the asset class in the short term and the long term. And for me, mine has changed quite a bit over the last 4 years of what I was expecting at the beginning, and then now what I'm expecting, now. So but that's just been research every day, a couple hours a day, trying to figure out, where things are headed. That's a super long tangent again. My goodness, I'm like rambly. Oh my god.
No, nothing wrong with that. No. I think it's valuable valuable information and it's valuable stuff. Like, it's so true. Like, people are genuinely, well, yeah, you're right. There are some that just won't see the forest and the trees, and there's some that do see the forest and they're in the fear of the forest getting shut down. The other ones are seeing the forest and are taking action and are providing solutions for people, which is what we're doing in different ways. Everyone's on their different level of the journey, I guess, and I guess we're just circling back to help those with the eyes to see that, hey, the forest is getting cut down soon, and we're just here to help you help make that journey a bit more. I don't even know what to say, what the right word would be, but given what we feel is coming, so what would be your financial forecast for the next 8 to 10 years here? What do you see happening?
8 to 10 years, yeah.
Well, 5 to 10 years. I'm not even
My
sure.
goodness,
I
yeah, that's the
see.
thing.
Do you see a collapse coming? Because a lot of, like, even the truth community are saying, the whole thing's gonna get shut down. Well,
yeah. So how I think, just when you look at the rise and falls of empires and the rise and falls of currencies, they all run the same pattern. They run the exact same gauntlet. They run the exact same pattern. And what's happening in the States right now, as we'll call it the empire, because it really is, has the global reserve and it has the military might and has everything else. Everything's out of US. They are running the exact same patterns the Romans did, and they're running the exact same patterns the Greek did before them, which is you suddenly become obsessed with gender ideology. You become obsessed with pedophilia and homosexuality. You become war torn and civil war ridden, and they're right on the cusp of that. You have nonstop war outside of your territories that you have to fund continually. You have uncontrolled printing, taxation goes through the moon, and then you have devaluation of your dollar. All of these things are happening in the States right now. So to say, like, where is the economy going to be, or where's the collapse going to happen? The collapse is happening, and it's been happening since 2008.
I agree.
When we had the mortgage crisis in 2008, the great financial crisis, that's when quantitative easing started, and they've never really stopped. So they don't advertise it as much, but you can see the massive spike in money printing, and then with that money printing, stocks go to the moon, Bitcoin goes to the moon, everything goes to the moon, because the money has to go somewhere. And then when you look at who's buying it, it's the central banks that are just basically laundering their money. I print it from nothing, I lend it to the government at a percentage, I buy their bonds back with other money, so that the government now has more credit availability to borrow more money from me. So I print more and give them that money. And then the bonds that I bought from them, they owe me percentages on that as well, guaranteed in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, whatever denominations we pick. But at the same time, those bonds are backed by equities. Like, the governments buy up stock and they buy up all these things. So it's like, if you actually zoom out on the stock market, I found this, I put in one of my newsletters about a month or two ago. If you zoom out from the oh my goodness, 1929, the big, why can't I think what it's called? The Great
Depression.
Not the financial collapse. Depression, the Great Depression. It's so great. Yeah, so if you go from the Depression era to now and overlay inflation, so just how much the governments have always been printing and bought, it runs the exact same course. There's been no gain of value in the stock market since the crash of the 30s. Right. It's been exactly inflation the entire way along. And then when you look from 2008 to 2024, it's 100% correlated with how much money they printed. So I'm like, the stock market doesn't even really exist. There's really no value there. That's the craziest thing. And that was the craziest thing for me. It was so eye-opening. Like, wow, yeah, we are literally living in a true fiat system. There is no real intrinsic value in anything. It's all phony fake money. Yep. And then when you look at cryptocurrency specifically, we'll use Bitcoin for an example. I went down a giant rabbit hole with that, and there's no coincidence that it happened to just get launched in 2009.
Yeah,
a month before they started doing the quantitative easing, right? And why would they do that? Why would they do that? This is where I get into a bunch of things. It's like, well, if you have a financial systems collapsing, And it was very evident to people at the time in 2008, 2009. Everything's
Yeah.
going to hell. Like things are, millions of people were displaced from their homes in the States. Millions of people went bankrupt. Thousands of banks went bust. Like it was a big deal. They release Bitcoin. They start printing money. They start flooding it into Bitcoin to pump it up to get people into Bitcoin because they don't want you in physical gold.
No, they don't.
If you're holding physical gold and physical silver, that's untrackable, untraceable. Now, people will think that cryptocurrency is not trackable, not traceable. But when you start to go through the layers, you're like, yeah, no, there's, the FBI has tracked down every single Bitcoin that was ever stolen, in 2010, the Mt. Gox. They tracked it down and they retrieved it. So, well, how'd they do that?
Exactly.
Well, they have the information. It's like they're the source code. They're not the source code. The NSA is the source code. But ultimately, it's like you have a digital currency that comes out. You have tons of money flowing into it. You let it spread out into the libertarian movement where they'll just spread it like wildfire on their own. It's the greatest thing. It's out of the system. We're going to do this, that. I believe it's a Trojan horse, and it was always that way. And it was really just to get people accustomed to using digital money. So when they come and switch the system into CBDCs, then it's not that big of an adjustment, right? So how can you get people to go from cash money, 100% anonymity, to digital money? Well, you say it's anonymous. You say it's a libertarian movement, and it's untrackable. You just throw out all the choice words that people want to hear, and you just let it spread amongst them. They'll just spread it amongst themselves, and they're going to do all the marketing, and they're going to do all the sale pitch for you. You just let it go. Now we're coming to the end. Back to what we were talking about originally. We're coming to the end of this fiat system. And the end of the fiat system, which is the USD, there's going to be, like, when does it happen? I think the fiat dies, the collapse of the system really takes place when US citizens don't want to accept US dollars for payment anymore. We're already seeing that trend internationally for trade specifically. So if you went back 30 years, it's like 92% of all trade was US dollars. And then when the euro came out, it started to take a little bit of that away. It dropped to about 80%, and it was 20% euros. And then, the euro lost a little bit. It was 2% yen. And you can kind of go through the crux and the patterns. But the US dollar has been slowly losing trade volume, international trade volume as a whole. I saw a chart not too long ago. How accurate is it? I'm not sure, because I've seen multiple charts with varying numbers on them. But it showed that the US dollar as international trade is now down to just a 52%. So we're at a point as the world's like, I don't want your funny money. You guys are printing it for nothing. Why am I going to keep giving you our hard-working labor or whatever for US dollars? I don't want it anymore. Right? So then you get the jumping up from the BRICS nations and all these kinds of things where they're like, we don't want to deal with USD. We'll do our own little, huddle together. Let's figure out what we're going to do. They're still working on that, but they're slowly pushing USD out of all of their trades. People kind of brush off the BRICS nation. When you put all their GDP together, when you put all of their agriculture together, all their mineral ore, all their gold, all this, it's more than 60% of the world's like wealth. GDP as a whole is a false marker to use for value or worth and wealth, because GDP goes up with inflation. So when people are like, oh, the US economy went up 3.7% last year. No, inflation was up 3.7% because the dollar lost that value. And that goes into GDP. So it just looks like it's growing. It's like, no, things are getting more expensive. People aren't buying more things. People aren't making more money. The US isn't producing and selling more goods. Things are just getting more expensive. But when you say, who do they buy all their goods from? They're buying it from Russia, India, China. They're buying all this stuff from the BRICS nations. BRICS nations just have to stop using USD 100% to put enough pressure on the other countries to stop using USD. So we come into this, this apex where I think the US dollar, the Federal Reserve note US dollar, probably has 18 months left, I would guess. Somewhere in that range, basically 18 months or 50 trillion worth of US debt, somewhere in that region. They're adding $1 trillion every 100 days now. So, do the math, it's almost 18 months as well. But I still think that US is going to control the reserve currency in the end. I think what they'll do is they'll switch the dollar. They're going to get rid of the Federal Reserve note. Maybe they'll dissolve the Federal Reserve or whatever they're going to do. It'll become a treasury note like it was before the Federal Reserve. And they'll have to do a gold-backed system of some sort. Maybe not 100%, but to get trust back in from the people. Because you can't just say, here's your CBDC. It's a piece of crap. It's not backed by anything. Now we have ultimate complete control over you, and we can just print it to oblivion or shut it off. Or no one's going to go for that. No one's going to go for that. But if you're like, everything sucks, everything, inflation went to the moon, we have to get rid of that. We're going to go digital. It's on the blockchain. It's gold backed. You can see it. Like they have to have some kind of like lure. They have to have a jig on there to get people to bite. Either people have to be so desperate that they're begging for something, or you have to entice it. Like the fiat system is garbage. It's backed by nothing. Here's a different system. It's backed by gold or silver or a commodity that's tangible and trackable. It has real value. Yeah, I think the world's going to be a very different place in 5 years from now, for sure. But I think like 18 months, we're going to see a lot of volatile change. And when you're in money markets, it's in that volatility where you make all your money, right?
Yep.
So
that's what the elites do.
Classes, like gold and silver, gold's up like 25% this year. It's had a really good run. The future of gold, though, even gold has to evolve. It has to be tokenized because gold is heavy. It's hard to transport. If you have a gold system, you still need ways to transfer that value easily. And the easiest way to do it is to tokenize the asset. That's where like XDC comes in.
Yep.
So they work with a company. R3 is the fintech company that kind of created that digital currency. They have partnerships with the London Metal Exchange. They have partnerships with I think it's the UK, the Bank of England. The whole point is they're already working with London Stock Exchange to tokenize the assets and run it through their platform and their blockchains. The reason for that is for speed of closing the assets. So right now, like, okay, I'm going to buy and sell trades. Yeah, on the internet, it looks like it's going very fast. My money's coming and going very rapidly, but it takes like 4 or 5 days for those to close on the back end, right? So if it's on blockchain, it's instantaneous. It's within 3 seconds. It's done. Everything's done when they're tokenized. And then a month from now, you can sort out, okay, we bought 10 ounces of gold off you. You bought 8 off of us. We only owe you 2. We'll do the transfer. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of figure that out at the very end, but all those transactions are done instantaneously and it's on an immutable ledger. So you can see it at the end. And okay, we'll just close at the end of the month and figure it out. I think we're going to see, then I would say, 18 months, a very different banking system in America, consolidation, a lot of banking closures, which again, you need to put in perspective. There's, I think, 3,500 banks in all of Asia. There's 5,800 banks just in the United States of America, independent companies. So it's like, and I think Europe has like 25 banks or something. Like they're all part of the same company. But in the States, there's this huge banking complex of just individual banking cartels. So they need to consolidate all that down to like 10 or 20 major banks, JP Morgan's, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs. Like they really need to get everybody under a smaller umbrella. So then it's easier to implement all these digital IDs or CBDCs or whatever they happen to end up doing in the end. They need to consolidate that. So I think 18 months, we're going to see a lot of consolidation of the banking. And we're going to see a changing of the currency. It'll still be the US dollar, but it's going to be maybe a treasury note instead of a Federal Reserve note. Some people might be watching this and thinking I'm off my rocker, but we'll see. I mean, I'm going to throw it 18 months. I'm going to throw it 18 months. It is very, very soon. But just looking at all the indicators, we're really close to a big change. So
I thought we were too. And that's with everything too. It's not just that too. I think there's big change coming for all sorts of other layers, not just financially too. And obviously the one layer will be they will promote so much fear around this too.
Fear, you have to have fear. If they're going to make change that's not good for you, they have to have it wrapped in fear.
Yep.
Because I mean, as you know, like once the mind's in a fearful state, the average person is looking for someone to tell them what to do.
Exactly.
Everyone goes into a childlike state. I don't know what to do. I'm older than, I don't trust my parents because they're really old. And I'm going to look to my government official or my doctor or my whatever. Like it's just, they just fear porn everybody and really get them in that lower level vibration. And then they come in with their, whatever they want to change, the mandates. Yeah. Like the only way, again, like we talked about, like the only way we're going to see change that's going to actually be good for the average person is if the average people band together and say, we are not doing whatever
Exactly.
coming forward.
Because we've always had the power, Emery, haven't we? We've always had the power. Even during the start of the last 4 years, if we all had to just band together and said no, it wouldn't have happened.
And that's the only reason things stopped. It's because people finally like, this is enough. Like, no, I'm not doing this. And they're like, okay, sorry. And then they just move along. It's like,
but at the start of the whole thing, we could have just said no at the start, and then would have just stopped there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's
unbelievable how
I love seeing those.
Yeah, it's like that. It's the vibration that they put people in, because they put you in such a state of vibration you can't see a way out. Whereas if you can see a way out and you can see, as I said before, the forest from the trees, then you have that foresight. But a lot of people are stuck in that short term. It's the ones like us that can think long term, that hey, there's a plan, there's a way out. It's getting people back in that mindset of thinking long term again, because as we know, the school systems are big on that, the short term. And that's sort of where they can control, because even inside school, Emery, you got people looking at their headmaster or the principal, what or the teacher for guidance. Then they step out of school and they're like, someone lead me now. And then that's when the government comes in. Right, you need to do this, do this, do this. And they're like, okay, no worries.
It's so easy. That's the funny part too. Like when you start to actually dig deep, like let's go in the schooling system. Like,
it's my favorite.
Who created the school system that we follow? It's the Russians.
That's it.
Why did the Russians create the schooling system? Because when they were going to war, they were just gathering up farmers and they're like, okay, we're going to go to war, right? And then they're like, as soon as the shooting started, people are just running. I'm not doing this. So the Russians sat back and they're having to shoot their own guys, trying to use fear. So like, we need to set up a system where we have people from a young age being taught by one person who's an authoritative figure, right? And then it's like, then they go to the upper grades and the class is a little bit larger and it's one person. And you go to university and you're sitting in a lecture hall and there's 350 people and there's one guy in the front.
That's it.
Right? And then you get out and you're going to work. It's like the CEO is now running thousands of people and no one wants. It's just. And then when you sit back and look at it, you're like, oh, what a brilliant brainwashing style of, it's like under the guise of education. It's like, no, this is indoctrination. It's just teaching you to be an authoritative, follower. And then you sit there and you think like, how did I ever think like that?
Yep.
Because everybody went through it and you're like, wow, I was like totally brainwashed. I remember when I was young, my goodness, like I wanted to join the military so bad. Not because I don't know, kill people. I just felt so patriotic. I just want to go and I want to do these things and I want to protect my country. Thank goodness I didn't get in, because I went to a bunch of during college, I'd go to the meetings and I'd sit there and listen to them.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not good at taking command. That's a thing. Or receiving command. You know what I mean? It's like I'm too much of a free thinker. I ask too many questions. Like for me, there's always a lot of gray area. So I used to.
They would have loved you. I didn't
do well, right? Because it's like I use too much empathy when I'm dealing with people, and I'm trying. I'm not just in there like clubbing people and just handing out tickets. It's like, yeah, you're just I'm trying to help people here, and it's like, yeah, no, you're a police officer. You're not helping people. You're here to find them. You're basically the sheriff of Nottingham. Like that's all you are as a police officer. But
or compliant, obedient.
But people now, it's like. That's exactly it. It's like you're just be an order follower. And it's like that thing. If you're asking questions, they just lop you off. You want everybody down at the same level. You don't want to stand out too much. And if enough people just like, what is the biggest repercussion that's going to happen? It's nothing in the end. You realize you're like, oh, nothing even happened. Nothing bad happened. Like I was almost getting in fistfights at grocery stores. Because people were in my face and I'm like, this is crazy. I'm like, I'm not backing down. I'm not wearing that mask. Like I'm going in. And I had no problem to be like, if they were like not going to accept my payments, I'm like, well, it's $250. So here you go. Here's $300. Keep the change. Like I had no problem. Like I'm just, you're going to call the cops. He overpaid us. You know what I mean? Like I always I push the limits as far as I'm allowed to push them, right? Before I'm going to get into like real trouble. But trouble, like in the end, I get off on whatever charges I get laid. It's just that annoyance of like, okay, I got to go to court on this day now, and I got to do this, and it's for the average person who's has a job 9 to 5, they're like, oh my goodness, I might lose my job. And that was the one thing too. We're gonna go on a whole tangent here.
Yeah, we are.
It was like you can only implement tyrannical rule on people that have something to lose.
Correct.
That's it. You're not going to go into Nicaragua, be like, if you don't do this, we're taking your house. Like, I don't even own a home. Yeah, if you don't do this, you're losing your job. I make $10 a day. If you don't do this, I can just walk to the forest and grab some mangoes. Like they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So here, like in this country, it's like they'd have to come here and entice you. Hey, we really want to do some terrible things. But the good news is the banking is going to be easier for you. You don't have to stand in the line at the bank anymore. And that's literal. That is here. The locals don't have debit and credit cards. So they have to wait in line at the bank on payday. There's 200 people waiting in line at the local bank. The bank does run out of money. There's only so much physical cash, right? So like you hope that by the time you get there, there's still cash left over for you to get your paycheck.
Oh
That's what it's like here. So, but it's like that in probably like 80% of the world. That's the thing. We just live in a world that's not like that. But 80% of the world is probably like that. So, if you're trying to set in a digital infrastructure, and all the Nicaraguans have smartphones too. That's the crazy part. So it's just like, well, would you like to keep standing in the bank all the time, or we can just put your money on your phone, and then you can just go tap everywhere you go. 99.9% of the people here are like, just put on my phone. Like they don't care about the cash. They don't care about the anonymity. For them, it's a huge hassle because they're waiting for hours in line at the bank, and they might not have any money. There might not be none left, and they have to come back tomorrow and do it again, right? So, and they live on cash. So, you look at how do they force this in Canada? How do they force it in Australia? They threaten your job. They threaten your pension, threaten your whatever, right? It's like, we're going to take something away from you. Like, oh, I can't live without that thing. Yeah. So, but in these other countries, it's like, we'll give you stuff. They're going to incentivize it, right? So
it's interesting.
Everyone just needs to band together. If you know what I mean? If you want change, you have to force it. That's the thing. So they want to change, the rulers, they want to change, and they force it on everybody as hard as they could. Right. So people pushed back. Eventually they backed off. They realized, okay, it's not going to work. We need to just give it some breathing room. But they're always just sitting there waiting for the next, and you can see it. They try different things in every country, right? Just to sit back and see what's taking hold well, what demographic is, take notes. Okay, we'll come back at it in 2 years. Give it breathing room and it's funny because you look now and it's like people act like nothing happened.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that they weren't threatening to steal your kids and threatening to throw you in prison and threatening. They were, that people just acting like that didn't happen. Even people within the freedom community group, it's like they just forgot. That's the whole point. They want you to get comfortable again and just be like off guard, and
we'll just circle back.
Yeah, exactly. We'll come back around when you're off guard again. We'll throw it at you. But cryptocurrency is an opportunity to get out to a degree, right?
Yep.
So as long as you're getting in for the right reasons, with the right expectations out of the asset class, and have a properly structured exit plan. Okay, so a lot of people just come in and they're like, oh, I'm going to buy Bitcoin, and because Michael Saylor said it's going to $1 million. Can't wait for $1 million. Okay. I don't think it's going to $1 million personally, but let's say it made to $850,000 and you bought it at 62, but you think it's going to $1 million. It doesn't hit $1 million and it starts crashing down. You're like, no, it's going to $1 million. Now it's 700, 600, 500, 400. You're like, oh, okay, I'll sell it at 300. Right? You're like, oh man, I missed out on $550,000 because I had a unrealistic goal that I was just so hard pressed on keeping. A lot of people miss so much money in this market, stock markets, gold markets, all these different markets, because they just have such a hard-lined expectation of an asset class that, in my opinion, sometimes is unrealistic. So yeah, I personally, I love crypto. I think it's awesome. I think the asset class has got an amazing future. The issue for me is, am I going to be the type of citizen that is allowed to partake in that future? So I need to, be realistic about what I expect to get out of the crypto class, the asset class, and where I plan to put that money to help me make it through whatever comes. So
Yep.
it's interesting.
It is very interesting. And I love how you said a plan, because there's a lot of people out there in society, whether you're in the freedom community or not, that don't have a plan. They're just in survival mode. And that's with all facets of their life. It's not just financially, it's their health too. Like there's just no plan. There's no motivation. There's no getting out of bed today and it's on a one day closer to, having that purpose. Like there's just, even financially too, it's not just that. It's like in every facet, there's no purpose, there's no motivation. It's just get up, we'll go to work today and we'll just get through another day and we'll just be in survival mode of the inflation and all this rubbish. It's like no one has a 5-year, 10-year plan and little baby steps of how to actually get there. And that's with every facet.
Everything.
Everyone's
Yeah, exactly.
just in this rat race, this hamster wheel, just running it and running and running, and there's no real purpose and there's no meaning in life anymore. In both
Well, that's the thing.
communities, I'm saying here too. It's not
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
one community. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I see you on Facebook and like you're on a whole new fitness journey, right? It's not like you're like, I'm going to be on the Olympia stage next week. Like, no,
Nah,
you're going to start lifting weights and eating healthy. Like you're going to baby step it and see where it goes. And then you're going to hit
exactly.
a plateau and you're going to adjust accordingly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. I feel like so many people are just stuck either in a negative mindset of what things are like, oh, it's hopeless. What's the point?
Yeah.
I'll go to work as long as I can make it till Friday. Like, then I'll just party all weekend. I'll start again on Monday. Like it's the vast majority, again, talking to Jason for years, it's like the vast majority of people, sadly, are just like grown-up teenagers.
Mm.
They're teenagers in adult bodies. They have adult money and they have adult responsibilities, but they just have a teenage mindset. It's like, I just want to get through this crappy job I absolutely hate so that I can get home and have a few pints,
Yep.
watch The Walking Dead, and then go back to work till Friday. Maybe I'll call in sick, maybe I won't. And then, I'm going to party on Friday night, and Saturday night's this, Sunday's football, and then it's back to work on Monday. And it's like, but I am going to take a vacation in 4 months, so that's going to be awesome. It's like, yeah, there's no plan to get out of the wheel.
No.
There's zero, like they have blinders on within the wheel and they know they're in a cog, they know they're stuck, but they're like, how do I get out? It's just, this is my life and this is where I'm going to be. Yeah, it's really sad.
It is. And it's both
I remember
communities too.
I had a lot of people like that. That's the thing. And it's like, it's because people are slow drip this stuff. You don't wake up one day and be like, oh, I feel hopeless. No, you're like, it's slow dripped in the media. It's slow dripped through school. It's slow dripped through everything, right? So it's just eventually just becomes this weight you don't even realize you're carrying around all the time. I remember I was 21. I was driving home from work.
Here we go.
I took a back highway. I'm coming up to a bridge and it was a 4-lane highway ripping under the bridge. And I remember I felt like everybody was an ant. They just looked like ants, racing around like crazy. That's how everybody looked like to me all of a sudden. I was like, so weird. I'm like, yeah, everybody's just racing in a hurry to get nowhere.
Yeah.
They're racing home as fast as they can from work to sit on the couch and watch TV.
Yeah.
Like you do the stats in Canada, less than 10% of people work out. It's super low, super low. It's like 8.5% of people. It's like 28% of people have a gym membership, but only 50% use it. It's like 9% of people actually work out. And it's like, these people are in a hurry to go nowhere. In the morning, like, they're in a hurry to get to work and they just sit there and they hate their day. And then they're in a hurry to get home and they're just like, I hate my everything. It's just, yeah, I'm just going to sit here, keep my face, watch TV, zombie out for a while. And it was just, there was no purpose. Everyone's just kind of scatting around doing nothing. And I'm like, I don't want to be in this situation.
Yeah.
I was still young, still dumb, still trying to pay off student loans and stuff, like, starting to figure my way in the world. It took me, I didn't own my own business for another, holy geez, I was 21 then. Yeah, I didn't buy that. My wife and I didn't buy our gym till I was 34. So it was like, I still was in the system trying to get ahead for so many years. It wasn't until I was my own boss running my own business where I realized, okay, this is where it's really at.
Yeah.
How much I put in is how much I get out. I can't just sit here and I'm going to make an hourly wage. If I'm not working to build something better, I'm not going to be making any money. Right. And it was like, your business becomes your identity. It becomes everything. And it's like, you're a representation of your business and your business becomes a representation of you. Right. So we owned a gym. I love to work out. So it worked out great for me. That became like anywhere I went, we lived in a small town, but if I'd be at the Costco in the next town over, people like, oh, that's Emery. He owns the gym. Like I was just the gym owner guy, right? People were looking at my shopping cart every time I go grocery shopping to see if I'm eating healthy. It's like, yeah, I'm not putting on a facade. I eat healthy because I like to work out, and that's why I bought the gym, and that's why, it's like it was who I was, right? But
Yeah.
So it wasn't until I started working for myself where I was really like truly realized, okay, there's like money making is super easy. It really is. If you're passionate about what you're doing, that just like glows off of you.
I
And
know,
it
right?
attracts people who want that as well.
Mm.
We live in a world, people are TikToking and selfieing everywhere and putting up the best pictures of themselves in every situation they've ever been, but like they loathe their lives. It's like, they're not real lives. But when you speak to someone, you see someone, you're like, whoa, they're like really full of energy. They're full of life. They're full of whatever passion, what they're talking about. Even if you're not even interested in all, you suddenly are like, I'm kind of interested in knowing, sorry, what do you do exactly? Like, oh, I'm a professional quilter. I go to the quilting Olympics every year. Like, whoa, how do you do that? Like, you just want to know because they're so passionate about it.
Yes,
Right?
I have those conversations all the time with random people because as you're probably aware, I'm super passionate about what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So people are curious, like, sorry, what exactly is it? And then
Yep.
they suddenly have an interest in wanting to learn more about it.
Mm.
And but if you're just working for somebody else all day, every day for a paycheck, yeah, you never have that. There's the life is, you're not creating, you know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
you're not
People are
living, you're
conditioned to
not
be
really,
passionate about something that they're not really deeply, truly passionate about.
yeah. If you're doing it for a paycheck, then yeah, it's not the same.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love how you said it's just glowing off you. It's like that attraction. You're in that vibration too. If you want to talk energy and spiritual stuff, you're in that
Yeah.
vibration of like you're just in a different vibration. You aren't in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically what it is.
Yeah,
You're just in a
whether
love
just like your aura
frequency.
is different. It's just the
Yeah,
energy that's coming off of you is different. It's an attractive energy. So people always
correct.
say like, okay, what exactly is it that you do? You just something like even if they don't realize it, they're picking up there's something different about you, and they want to know what
100%.
it is exactly, right? So yeah, I mean, um, like it's so funny because like cryptocurrency became my thing. It's just I laugh at it because I am so anti-technology. It's like I didn't get a cell phone until I was 32. I'm
Yeah, right.
44. You know what I mean? Like I worked in a cell phone store for years. I'm like, I don't want one now. They're like, it's free. I'm like, I don't want it. Like, I was totally anti everything. It was like, but just because I had this fear, at the beginning of, I don't want to lose all my money.
Mm.
I work hard for my money. I don't need the government just seizing and stealing because I disagree with them. I need to figure out what's happening. That forced me to expand my knowledge base on it. And then once you get really deep and you're like, wow, it's a very fascinating asset class. And for people who love money, it's like you can make tons of money in this class, but you can lose tons of money too, right? Really rapidly. Um, so it's getting the balance of, again, like I said, it's like, what do you expect out of the asset class? Because it can offer a lot or it can take a lot too. So um,
Mm.
yeah, I mean, moving forward, if I was to break down like where do I see cryptocurrency moving forward,
Yep.
it would be tokenization of everything. Every asset class, everything you could possibly imagine is going to run on a blockchain of a sort um, in the near future, and that's for security, efficiency, cost effectiveness, the green narratives, all those kinds of things. Like they're all going to be running for a very specific reason. And then it's what I like to do is how I like when I'm investing for my own thing. If I want to buy a specific cryptocurrency, I
Mm.
think, okay, what's a group or an industry with a really large market capitalization? So you think like housing. When you take the housing market, its total value is $350 trillion globally. That's what houses are worth. Okay. Well, how would they tokenize? Well, how would housing be like digitized? How would they make it run in cryptocurrency? Well, you can get rid of the lawyers, you can get rid of the mortgage brokers, you can get rid of a huge swath of the industry by just running it through blockchain and AI. It just does it all for you automatically. And then it's like, okay, well, are there any blockchain or fintech companies that are trying to tokenize or facilitate mortgage brokerages and all that kind of stuff with housing? So yeah, there's a few. You're like, okay, so you start reaching like, okay, there's three. Do any of them have any partnerships with any big banks or any building firms or any of that kind of stuff. You're like, oh yeah, there's one that's actually working with this state in the States, and it's working with, you know, Uruguay, the government of Uruguay, to try and do it. Okay, I'll put a little bit of money into that. In the event that maybe everything does go the way it looks like it's going with, you know, the trend, and everything will be on a blockchain, they already have a running head start. Chances are, if it goes that way, these guys are probably going to win that race. I'll put some money on that one and sit back and wait, right? Because I'm also like, I'm a long-term investor with a short-term view, because long-term in crypto is like 2 years. That's the thing. A year in crypto is like 10 years in the stock market. So it's like your windows are a lot shorter. And then it's the same thing, like we talked about, you know, XRP, XLM, XTC earlier. Those are like value / money transmitter assets. Okay. Do any of the mother fintech companies that work with those currencies, do they have any partnerships? Okay, yeah, they all do. You're like, okay, who they're partnering with, what do they facilitate? Well, XTC and R3 are partnered with the London Exchange. They're partnered with Metals Exchange. They're also partnered with a bunch of big banks and central banks in Asia. You're like, oh, okay. Well, how much money do these guys move around? Then you start to run the numbers in your head. You're like, okay, if they get the 100% of that value running through their blockchain, and it has this much circulating supply, divide that by 365. Okay, the value is about this. Maybe it's $10, maybe it's $100, you know, how the math works out. But when the asset's 5 cents right now, or 3 cents, and you're running numbers, you're like, the potential is a $50 token. You're like, man, yeah, okay, I'll put a couple $100 or $1,000 on that, because from 3 or 4 cents to $50, a big jump. But then it's setting targets along the way if it does a run, you know. Okay, I'll take out a little bit at $1. I'll take a little bit more out at $3, take a bit more at 10, and I'm 50% out by 12. And I just sit back and wait and see if it actually goes crazy high. Maybe it doesn't and crashes to zero. Well, at least I got some money out along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, there's just so many fintech companies with specific assets that are targeting like carbon credits. That's evil. Carbon credit's a joke. Total scam. It's just to crush, you know, the average retail investors. It's to crush the middle class. It's just to hurt people. But if the governments go that way and they actually run it through, if you knew that you could invest in the infrastructure and make 10,000 times your return, would you invest in it? Or would you say, no, I'm not going to do that because I know it's evil? And that's where people have to like come to a decision, right? It's like, they're going to do it anyways. You're going to be paying those taxes for the rest of your life, or those, you know, those credit systems. You have an opportunity to make enough money to pay those for the rest of your life and your family's life. So it's not going to affect them at all. As evil as it is, if it comes through, are you going to invest in it? When I say invest, you're not investing in the infrastructure. That's already done and ready to go. It's just, do they implement it? Do they not implement it? Right? So that's a lot of things too people have to wrestle with. And I was wrestling with that for a long time. Like, I would never invest in 5G technology. Never would. I've had lots of opportunity. I'm like, ooh, that's going to be a big one. But I'm like, I can't do it. That's intentionally designed to hurt people.
Exactly.
I can't do it. It's physically hurting people.
Yep.
I can't do it. And then with cryptocurrency, I'm like, it's technology. It doesn't do anything good or bad. It just does technology. And if the bad people get a hold of it, it's going to hurt people financially. If the good people are controlling, then it's going to be great for civilization. Like, okay.
We could talk about who's controlling it, couldn't we?
You know who's controlling right now. Yeah, exactly. It's, oh man. Yeah. So it's like, you know, when people ask me like, where do I see crypto in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? It's like, it depends on what the individuals are willing to allow to roll through, right? I think if we allow digital IDs to go through, it's game over. Digital IDs, like true digital ID, where it's like, no, you need facial recognition to get your bank account. You need, you know, it's your driver's license on your phone. You have to have your phone with you everywhere. It's like, yeah, that'll be the last drop in the bucket for total lockdown control.
Yeah.
Unless there's like, oh, we got our guns and we're gonna fight this government. Like, it'd have to be like,
oh, don't worry about that with Australia. Emery, Australia lost their guns a long time ago.
Yeah, they're pushing hard in Canada too.
Don't worry, Australia lost theirs about 20, nearly 30, over 30 years ago, Australia lost their guns, man.
Really?
So, yeah.
Okay, I thought it was like quasi recently, like the last 5 years, 6 years.
No,
Okay,
no,
no.
no. If you look up the Port Arthur staging here in
Yeah.
Australia, they staged a mass shooting, and Australia were like,
Damn.
"Yep, we'll hand our guns back for everyone's safety."
Ah, that's so crazy.
Oh,
It's
wild,
like
mate.
when you, yeah. Anyways, we keep talk
Australia
about
were
it longer.
just, mate. To be honest with the country I'm in, people will bend over and take it. That's as
Yeah, I've
blunt as
heard a
I can be.
few. I've heard a few things where like Jason will say that Australia is the testing ground for everything
Oh yeah,
because they just listen to the government. They just so
oh
it's
yeah,
like, well, let's see how far we can push this before a super docile nation will start to push back a little bit, right?
yep.
It's like the testing ground all the time.
That's it.
Yeah, so I mean, when I saw that they were passing the digital IDs and stuff in Australia, and they're linking to the bank accounts and all that kind of stuff, I was like,
Yep.
okay, I got probably a year or 2 years before it's in Canada.
Yep.
Like it's
Yep.
like this little buffer zone. I'm like,
And you
okay,
guys have
I
been, and
really,
then obviously the taxing stuff that's been going in Canada. It's like, oh, that's only about 6 months away for us because we just copy.
yeah, they're going bananas. Yeah,
Yeah.
the government's just insane right now.
You know, we've talked about this all
It's
day, really, but we've probably been going for an hour. So I guess to
I'd
wrap
imagine
things
it's been
up,
a bit.
it's been good though. It's been really, really awesome. I've really enjoyed stuff. We'll have to come back on and do this again. But I was just going to wrap it up by saying if there's someone listening to this that's pretty interested like me, is interested in dabbling in this, what would be some advice for that person to actually start their investing journey? I think you might have already said it, but just to wrap it
No,
up.
yeah. So the very, very first thing you should do is sit back and honestly assess your own financial situation.
Yep.
Set up a budget and figure out how much you can actually invest honestly. Not like, okay, I could go without this, I could go with that. Like, how much money do you have left over every month, right? Of that money that's left over, let's say it's $500. I got $500 of the month that it's my squander money. I do whatever I want with. Okay. How much of that can you afford to actually lose every single time? That's how much you should be investing.
All right.
No more, because then you're getting into a gray area where like, I really shouldn't have lost that $100. It's like when you go to the casino, if you're a gambler, you're like, okay, I have $100, I can afford to lose it. If I lose it, doesn't matter. But then you're like, okay, I'll go 20 more. No, I'll go 40 more. And you leave your $300 and you're like, oh God, okay. Technically I can afford to lose it, but like I can't go to the movies next weekend. I can't go to dinner because unless I'm going into credit now. You do a budget and figure out how much you can actually afford to lose. That's your true investable portion that you should be playing with. And then from there, it's honestly just doing a little bit of research on your jurisdiction, because that's going to matter if it's cryptocurrency, which cryptocurrencies you can even access, because every government has their own little set of rules, which apply to the different exchanges. So like Americans can only access so many exchanges. Canada is actually very, very like they're one of the forerunners in cryptocurrency as far as like how you can use it and go about buying it. They're very, very open. They just tax the heck out of you if you make any money on it. That's all. But yeah, so it'd be just figuring out how much you can afford to lose. That's how much you can actually afford to invest. And then figuring out which exchanges you have access to in your jurisdiction. And then from there, you want to figure out liquidity. Liquidity is the most important thing in cryptocurrency. And I think not enough people talk about it. Liquidity just means how much money is going in and out of that exchange in a 24-hour period. And then the individual cryptocurrency you want to buy, how much money is going out of that, in and out of that all the time. Because you could have a huge market cap, but if no one's buying or selling, if you decide you want to sell, who's going to buy it? You're like, oh, it's worth $30 billion. But the liquidity, no one's buying or selling, and the liquidity is so low. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to buy this token and what 10,000%. Yay, good for you. Try selling it now. There's only $50,000 running through that exchange every 24 hours, but your token's worth $5 million. There has to be $5 million worth of people wanting to buy that asset again. But if only $50,000 a day is going through it, now you're like trying to sell $500 a day, $5 million. The stress is not there. So yeah, it would be budget, jurisdictional restrictions, figure that out, and then liquidity on the assets and the exchanges, and make sure that you can get in and get out. Yeah, and then from there, then you want to learn, okay, how do I buy? How do I sell? How do I move it to a wallet? How do I get it back off a wallet, right? Because with cryptocurrency, it's like one wrong button push and it's just gone.
Yeah.
You sent it to somebody else wallet it's never coming back, right? So there's always those possibilities. So
Yeah.
it's just yeah. And then once you're confident, I mean, the confidence comes with the practice, right? So it's just, I'm going to send $5 from this wallet to that one. If I made a mistake, okay, it's only $5. I learned from my mistake. It only cost me $5. I didn't transfer my whole 5,000. I'll wait now and I'll do the next bit. And it's just baby steps.
Yeah.
And then yeah, just getting confident with the asset class, and obviously watching videos, listening to people or people like myself or Jason or whoever. Like, you just reach out. Like, I do have a whole course I built. It launches in May.
Yep.
It's called the Ultimate Roadmap, and it is for like all investor levels. So basically, it's, if you know nothing about cryptocurrency, by the time you start at the beginning of this course and finish, you're going to feel extremely confident in knowing how to do everything. So it's basically, I take you at the very beginning. We talk about all the different monetary asset classes. We cover bonds, securities, stock, everything.
Yep.
Chapter 2 is blockchain cryptocurrency. So it's like, here's all the other asset classes, how they work, how you invest, how you make money. And then like, okay, here's cryptocurrency. Here's the basics. It's this, it does this, it does it. Explain it all. Next step is, okay, how do you figure out liquidity? How do you figure out exchanges? How do you figure out all this stuff? Next stage is, how do you do a budget? How do you actually invest? How do you figure out what assets to invest in? What scams are out there? How do you avoid the scams? How do you detect the scams? Then we get into, how do you store it yourself? How do you move it around? We get into, how do you profit take, setting those exit strategies? Where do you reallocate those profits to make more money with the least amount of risk? And then we finish off at the very end with like taxation codes for different areas, crypto haven countries for taxation purposes, and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's a start to finish course. So I mean, I offer that. It's coming out in May. It's gonna be awesome.
Love it.
Over 9 weeks. There are 9 live week sessions. That makes sense. 9 live.
Yep.
9 live sessions. We cover a chapter of each of the courses with an hour of instruction, an hour question and answer. Yeah, it's going to get everybody fully. There's no way you're not going to feel extremely confident on the asset class, the future of the asset class, how you can navigate through it, make money and stuff by the end of it. And then also be realistic about what it has to offer today and moving forward too.
Yeah.
So a lot of people use, oh, well, Bitcoin's done 6 million%. Yeah, that's great. Is it going to do 6 million% from now moving forward? Probably not. So where can you put your money to make the most amount of money moving forward, right? We kind of just delve into that kind of stuff too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm an affiliate, so we'll put my link down the bottom. Emery set me up with affiliate links. So if you want to join Emery's course, which sounds awesome, by the way, yeah, click on the link in the show notes and sign up to his course. And yeah, that was an awesome chat, man.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure.
If anyone wants to find you, Emery, where can people find you? So your website, give yourself a bit of a plug again.
Website is cryptoinsights.pro.
Yep.
If you, all the information is on there. If you want to send me an email, it's an invest@cryptoinsights.pro.
Yep.
I have a weekly subscription newsletter where it covers everything that's going on in the back channel news for bond stocks, equities, trading embargoes, anything that's going to affect financial markets. We run through that for the week, and then I usually tackle one topic in great depth. Maybe like last week, I was talking about Bitcoin halving cycles and how those work. And then just most recent one, we talked about, actually it was rise and falls of empires and the cyclical patterns.
Oh, I love it.
Currency statuses. So yeah, we cover lots of different stuff, and it's $12 a month. It's a subscription-based newsletter, but there's no way you're going to get more information out of a weekly newsletter than what I put out every week. So that's awesome. All week, just research the heck out of it. But yeah, and I'm on Facebook as well. Obviously, it's just Emery Robichaud.
Yep.
And I put tons of free content on there. I'm always putting out bits of information, latest news, stuff.
Yeah, it's good. You got a good little Facebook page. It's really, really good. So I was looking at it before. So Emery, thanks for that chat. So I'm glad your wife joined us together. That was really awesome. I learned a lot too from all of that. It's like I think you might be my link to dabbling in this stuff.
It's my pleasure. Again, thank you for having me on. It's been awesome.
No worries.
And yeah, we'll have to chat and I'll get more just crypto specific and really laid out for everybody. But
Yeah, I think we do
it's
another
awesome.
one, and we really, yeah, like especially when I start my journey with it, we can really go somewhere with the next one, I reckon. So I have to stay in touch, I think, mate. It'd be good.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
All right.
All
Well,
right,
thanks for
Nathan.
jumping on. This has
My
been the
pleasure.
Breaking Free podcast. Stay tuned, guys. We've got some awesome guests coming soon. Emery was awesome too. If you want to find Emery, give him a follow. All his stuff's in the show notes. Everything's there. So I'll see you guys again real soon. Cheers.